Darlene Lancer. This is such an honor to have you here. You're like the codependency queen. You've written so many books and so much resources that you have to offer the world that I can't wait to dive into this topic with you.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. You're amazing too, how much you've contributed to the field of narcissism and helping so many women who are suffering, and men too. I have a lot of male clients with narcissistic wives.
And they're worse, aren't they? I mean, the men are kind of like at cookie cutters in the end, but the women are just, they just do some terrible things to the men. So, we have to give them a little kudos here. So today we are going to talk about the imbalance of power in a narcissistic relationship.
Right.
And we know that it's there because they've controlled us, and therefore there's that sort of thing. But what are some of the signs of the imbalance of power?
Well, when you don't feel like you're getting your needs met, that's a sure sign. One of the problems is, though, that codependents aren't aware of their needs. They don't think about their needs. They are used to accommodating. They may be in denial of them, or that's just the way they've always been, especially emotional needs. And this usually goes back to childhood because they've been shamed or ignored or told that they shouldn't have, some needs, which is shaming. If you're feeling resentful, that's a good sign that it may not be an imbalance of power, but that's just one among many symptoms. But something that's important that I want to talk about is when you feel like you're walking on eggshells, when you feel anxious. People that are in relationships with someone that's abusive, that's pretty common. And one of the big red flags is that you don't feel safe. But the problem is that these partners of narcissists or other abusers, addicts, people with borderline personality disorder, paranoid personality disorder, anyone who's aggressive or high conflict, highly defensive, you may not realize that you don't feel safe. And that's because, again, goes back to your family of origin. It may feel familiar. You might think it's exciting. Is he going to call? Is he not going to call when you're dating? And you want to make a good impression, and you're feeling what's anxiety is mistaken for excitement and intensity. And you go out with someone else and you feel safe and calm, and you might feel this is boring. There's no chemistry. So that's a big problem. It's also a huge red flag. And that's why so many codependents and partners of narcissists miss that. They might even think, it was so romantic in the beginning. All the love bombing and everything, and all that intensity, though, can make you blind to the anxiety that's underneath.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And you're on your toe. You don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to spoil the relationship. You watch what you say. Part of that is just from the way you were raised, but also it's a clue that you're afraid of upsetting the person you're with. So walking on eggshells is anxiety. That's a huge red flag. So it's telling you that someone else has power over you. So not feeling safe. And obviously, if there's some sort of abuse, you're aware of that, then you're subordinate. You're subordinating your rights. If the other person's making all the decisions.
Or has
control. One of the problems, is that the codependents defer. Now, in the beginning, you may think that's great. You may think, this woman knows what she wants, or this man, he can take charge, and I like that. And so you go along with it. But then that might be a pattern. See what happens when you speak up and you disagree.
Absolutely. I think confusion is another thing. If you're just sitting there always confused and like going, did that just happen? Like, did I actually do that? Right? The confusion. Yeah. It's sort of like, wait, this person's supposed to love me, but they've just ghosted me for a week. I'm confused, right? Those sort of red flags, as you were saying, and being afraid to speak up. If they're doing something and you don't feel like, you feel like if you, this is go back to the eggshells, if you actually speak up, they might leave you.
Mhm.
Ding, ding,
So,
ding.
and there are little things like your partner is walking ahead of you.
Mm,
Okay. So they are, they're not caring, talking on the phone in front of you
yeah.
when you're on a date or something. So that in itself is not a sign of a narcissist or an abuser, but you put these little pieces together, they cut in line, they're rude to the waiter or the valet or something, how they treat other people. And then it tells you you're afraid. They may not be angry at you, but it makes you feel a little at ease. You know that they're capable of turning that against you. And believe me, they will.
Of course. And
In the
like,
beginning, it's the other people or their ex or something. But before you know it, you'll be the victim of that too.
absolutely. Think about the difference in standards. They're allowed to have friends and go out, but they stop
Right.
you and isolate you from even seeing your family. So,
Right.
that is an imbalance of power where
Right.
they get to do what they want, they get to spend what they want, but you're on a budget. And
Exactly. Right.
for sure,
Finances.
absolutely. I mean, having that control over,
That control.
that, and then there's no balance there. If you are not allowed to go and spend $52 at a grocery store, but only 50, you're being controlled, right? And that's an imbalance. Again, they go out and buy giant gifts for themselves, but you're on that
Right.
balance of power. So what causes this? If we look down, we've thrown out that codependency name for sure, but what causes this? Like, is it our blindness to our own wounds at that point?
Oh, that's part of it. But let's just say it starts the beginning of the two personalities before you even meet each other. You're set up for this because a narcissist values power over everything else because that's how they want to keep safe. They feel very fragile inside. You wouldn't know it. They may never admit it, but they feel very insecure, and that's why they have to have this facade of being the best at everything and number one, and only associating with the best and the best labels and the best table and the best car, and they're the smartest and they're numero uno. Okay, so that's, you can, if you're wise to that, you realize that that's just a front to their insecurity inside. But they'll charm you and use persuasion to get what they want. And if that doesn't work, then they will pressure you and try to dominate you. But to keep safe, they always want to be number one. They want to dominate. And, research has shown too, my work is very research-based, that they will scan an environment and they will immediately see, like, who has the most attention in the room, who has the most power in this organization. And that's who they want to defeat because they want to be number one. And that includes you. They want to have more power over you because in their mind, that's how they can be safe. So again, that goes back to their childhood, and they've chosen power as a means to survive and be safe. And they prefer hierarchical situations and organizations where they can rise and compete. They like competitive situations where they can rise to the top, even if it's through unethical means. Okay, so now you look at their partners. Their partners also come from insecure homes, and they have insecurity inside. And they've chosen connection as a way to be safe. So if I can please my parent, if I can give them what they need, then I won't be in trouble. Maybe they had a sibling that was abused, or maybe they were abused. And so then they see, okay, so I'm going to try to accommodate my parent and win their approval or win their praise. And then I won't be in trouble and I'll be safe. So love and connection is the most important thing to them. So, then, so you put these two people together. Underneath, they're both insecure, see, but they've chosen different behaviors to, as a part of their personality that you're born with, has something to do with what you choose also, and your environment, your parenting. And you put them together. So the narcissist wants to be number one, and their partner wants to go along with that and please the narcissist, and even will actually admire their boldness and their ability to take charge, because they're not used to that. They're used to being, they feel more comfortable in a subordinate role. So many codependents don't want to be a CEO. You know, they don't want to run their own business. They rather report to someone, be told what to do. They may be at the top of their class, but that's because there was an assignment. They don't want to challenge the status quo, usually make waves. And they might have their own business, but they prefer to not be in the spotlight too much. So they leave that to somebody else.
They leave it to the narcissist who loves
the narcissist. So, and then they get to kind of shine in the glow, like in the shadow, be the woman behind the man, or the man that's like the manager or the promoter of somebody else. So, or a partner. They rather not be in the limelight themselves. So that just, you could see how the setup there works. And then there's interesting research that they studied brains and behaviors of rats or mice. I don't remember which, but they saw that there's something called self neurons in the brain and other neurons. And there are patterns where one will take charge and dominate, and they're more focused on, they have more like self neurons, and then other mice will accommodate them, and they'll be supported. Their brains will then sync up to the dominant mouse.
Wow.
So it's for survival and like for group cohesion. So we're kind of wired to have a leader and a follower. And the longer that there's a relationship, the more that pattern becomes ingrained. It's like grooves in your brain. And so you start getting used to that, whether it was in childhood or in a long marriage. And I haven't seen research exactly on this, but I would suspect that in the subordinate mouse, that there's more other neurons firing, that they're tuning into the other. And that's my definition of a codependent. Someone whose thinking and behavior revolves around another person, or it could be a drug, or it could be behavior like gambling or sex addiction or overeating or something like that. But it's outside of ourselves. And the journey home is to come back to ourselves. So the longer that we're focused on someone else or taking some drug or some compulsive activity, the further we get away from ourselves and healing. Okay.
Yeah.
So same with the narcissist, the more that they're looking for attention out there. I think that narcissists are codependent too, by the way.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So the behavior is different, but the unconscious is very similar between the two. So, so that sets up the kind of before they even meet. Okay. Then you get together, and maybe it's all great in the beginning, but sooner or later, the flattery and the romance changes to criticism. And now there's, what's wrong with you? And you're not good enough, because you're never going to be good enough for a narcissist. They want to be perfect because they want to be number one, and they want everything and everyone else to be number one, and everything they do is perfect, and they need you to be perfect too. I mean, I've had clients where a woman narcissist expected her husband to run her bath at a precise temperature.
Wow.
And carry all her favorite goodies in the car and water, and have the seats warmed up to the temperature she wanted. It was just like she had a lot of expectations. And and a male narcissist one time was telling his wife what shampoo to use and exactly what colors to wear, what clothes to wear, and creams, whatever. So he was dictating to her exactly how she should dress and behave, etc. So that kind of control is typical. And so there's an imbalance of power there, because what happens is the partner then tries to please, because, as I said, that's how they feel safe. Is if I can give the narcissist or my parent, what they want, then they won't be angry at me. Then I'll be safe. Then they won't yell at me. Then they won't leave me. Then they won't judge me. Like all of these things to keep safe. Yeah. And now on the other side, you have the narcissist who has insatiable needs. There's a lot of emptiness underneath. Yeah. And so they have this need for narcissistic supply that never got fully met as a child, and now it's insatiable. And when they don't get it, they almost like start to disintegrate their whole person. They need that constant affirmation. They can't affirm themselves. It's only in the reflection. If you think about the myth of Narcissus, he looks in the water and he sees the reflection. He doesn't realize it's himself, smiling back at him. So they need constant validation, admiration, praise, from others. They make it up if they don't get it, or they manipulate to get it. And so without this constant supply, it's like the Wicked Witch of the East just melts, just dissolves. And so the codependent keeps trying to get there. They think if I keep giving it, I'll be safe. So this is the fundamental problem, the dynamic that goes on. And so what partners don't realize is that, basically the narcissist is seeking power, and he'll sacrifice the relationship to get it. Okay. And the partner is seeking connection and love, and they'll sacrifice themselves to keep the relationship. And then the narcissist has sacrificed the relationship for power, and the partner will sacrifice themselves to keep the relationship. So probably they don't realize the narcissist in the end won't sacrifice the relationship, but they're always afraid they will. Some narcissists will leave, but they're so codependent, they're pretty dependent on their partner. And sometimes only when you threaten divorce do they think, I'll go to therapy, I'll reform. Right. They can only do it for short term because it's a deep psychological problem they have. It's not just something that they can change in a couple of weeks and they can last.
It's not like going to the gym for a month in January and you're going to be healthy all year.
Yeah, right.
They can't maintain that, nor do they want to, because that's work, and they don't want to work on the relationship. It's your fault, and they're ready to go on to the next one. But in that vein, so many narcissistic and codependent relationships end up being quite long-term. I mean, not all of them, but some of them can go 20 years. And like, is someone more codependent, or is the narcissist less volatile if they end up like, what's the secret between a 20-year marriage? How do they make it work if this imbalance is always gone?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. Like, first of all, as you say, narcissists exist on a continuum. Okay, so they're not all malignant, and they're not most are not necessarily violent. So, and sometimes their bursts of anger are sporadic. And so that's one thing. And then you have a partner who is, used to, maybe that's their family system, that the wife usually would be subordinate, and the husband runs the family, runs the show. And as long as you don't cross that, maybe she's the good little homemaker or the mother, and he brings in the money, and then they just have their own, and maybe she doesn't expect intimacy.
True.
Maybe she's satisfied without it.
Yeah.
So, and some narcissistic men, for instance, demand a lot of sex, and others don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the wife that's feeling I'm not getting, the partner is not getting her needs met. So there's different combinations. And then some partners, they may love the lifestyle. Maybe they have a very glamorous lifestyle and they've made peace with it. Or they just have too much money. The narcissist is bringing in a lot of dough and they like that. Mm-hmm. And so that's more important to them. Yeah. For some, so it depends what your priorities are too. Mm-hmm. So, or it could be family. Mm-hmm. And, so there are narcissists. I wrote a blog about how, and it's also in my book, about how narcissists play games mm-hmm. with, so there's some, it's called Buddhist love, like some narcissists, it's just relationships and dating and all that. It's just for pleasure. Mm-hmm. And they're like bees, they go from one flower to the next. Yeah. Okay. And that's really, it's all a game to them. Mm-hmm. And they'll manipulate you. And once they got you hooked, the game is over and they go on to the next person. But there are other narcissists who they are capable of pragma love. So it's more like they're pragmatic. Okay, this woman, she's respectable to bring in public. Maybe she's making money and she's raising the children. She appreciates me. She doesn't confront me too much. And that's enough for them. They don't care about closeness in a relationship. Mm-hmm. They just maybe want to be free to do their thing. And then there's some spouses who say, well, it's okay if he or she flirts or has an affair here or there, as long as they come home to me.
Right. Yeah. It becomes that people can get used to the crumbs. Like, it's okay if they cheat, they'll be home, and I don't want to change our family dynamic. I don't want to change our life. I don't want to move. I have what I need. You go be you, and I'll run the house while you're gone. That sort of getting used to after 20 years. Yeah, you just get like into the routine. This is what happens. He may go that way, or this might happen. But again, it's that spectrum, right?
Well, you bring up a very important subject. Denial.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've had clients where they say, well, at least, he's not violent.
Yeah.
I mean, he disregards their needs and everything, but he's not violent, or he doesn't cheat. Mm-hmm. Okay. But, and I'm thinking of, in some cases, there may be signs of infidelity, but they deny it. And that's so they can stay. Mm-hmm. They don't want to know, because they don't, again, the relationship, maintaining the relationship is number one for codependent. Mm-hmm. Because their biggest fear is abandonment. Yeah. For a narcissist, his biggest fear is like looking weak. Mm-hmm. And but for a codependent, they don't want to be left emotionally. Right. So they deny, and denial doesn't mean you just don't know what's going on. You may make excuses for it. Mm-hmm. You may rationalize it. No, he is calling me names, but I know he doesn't mean it. I know he cares about me. Mm-hmm. Or he's rude or does this or that, but he had a rough childhood. Mm-hmm. So he goes into these moods, and or it really doesn't bother me that much. And they don't realize that they're denying, because denial of feelings, I mentioned needs, is also a symptom of codependency. Mm-hmm. So being in denial of your feelings helps you cope with bad behavior. So you won't feel shame, you won't feel sad, you won't feel abandoned, emotionally abandoned, hurt, all these things. Or maybe you feel it and you think, well, I can handle it. Mm-hmm. So you just distract yourself. You focus on your children or your work, or maybe you're close with your family or something. whatever it is, you manage to minimize the internal conflict, because if you really admit that you're being abused and you're not doing anything about it, or you're being cheated on, you're not doing anything about it, all these things, then you really have a conflict. You might feel ashamed that you're not taking action.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the other thing didn't point out. It's very, very important, is that because of the low self-esteem that partners have, when the criticism and blame and shame and lying and everything is piled on by the narcissist, they absorb it like a sponge. They think, I guess it was, I'm not a good enough partner, or I guess I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. I made a mistake. It was my fault. And they agree. So they both the narcissist and the codependent agree that the codependent is responsible for the narcissist's behavior. So you're not responsible for someone else's behavior. Like, okay, I found them cheating, and he's saying, "Oh, what are you doing looking in my phone? How dare you?" It's like, and it's your fault because you don't, give me enough of my needs or attention or whatever it is. Yeah. And so the partner is thinking, well, probably he's right. I shouldn't have done that, or I should have, all the tyranny of the shoulds. And they absorb all the shaming and blaming. And their self-esteem gets like smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's a big reason it helps you stay. It's also part of the imbalance of power. And it keeps you getting smaller and smaller until you really lose yourself. You could lose your whole identity, just trying to make that relationship work.
So is there help for us? Can we rebalance this power, or is it just get the heck out? Like,
of course.
Another side.
That's what my book is all about.
Wait to hear that one.
Yeah. So, by the way, I want to point out one thing is that what I just said, and all this pleasing and trying and absorbing the blame, that's enabling the narcissist to have the power. Yeah. By you going along with it, by you trying to please, by you not setting boundaries, you're agreeing that they have a right to tell you what to do. They have a right to be number one, that they're right in their appraisal of you, that they can judge you. So defending yourself, justifying, explaining, pleading, all those behaviors that are placating, that just comes naturally to most people. But what it does, it's telling the narcissist or any abuser, it's telling them, you have a right to judge me. Yeah, you're and like a parent, you can scold me, and now I have to come to you and explain why I did something, why I chose something, why I shouldn't get in trouble. So that kind of behavior perpetuates the abuse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? So the first step is learning all about it, like what we're doing right now to help people understand. So get all the information you can. And then and to learn about the narcissist. Because if you're trying to have a conversation about something or about the behavior, or a dispute over something, again, remember, they're only interested in power. So they're not interested, and you're trying to show them that you're innocent or you're right. That's not going to go anywhere. It's going to increase an argument. And by the way, never tell a narcissist they're a narcissist. Yeah. And label them, because they have very thin skin. They said in the beginning, they're very fragile. So you have to avoid criticizing them. Doing the same thing back to them, that's counterproductive. Tit for tat. So you're going to escalate conflict and abuse. So you don't want to do that. So the first step is getting information. And along with that is coming out of denial. So you see all these years, this person isn't who I thought he was. I'm not getting my needs met. And there's often some grief that goes with that, because it's like the veils are being removed from your eyes and you're seeing for what it is. And then you say, is there any hope?
Yeah.
This person has a personality disorder. That's not easy that doesn't change like easily.
Mm-hmm.
So does this mean the end? So there's some disappointment, and sadness there. But that's the step to being able to take realistic action. Because as long as you're in denial, you will take action that's not productive. It's usually counterproductive, what I'm discussing. I talk about the 3 A's in one of my YouTubes. It's like awareness, acceptance, and action. So first you build awareness, and then it takes a while to really understand this and accept it. And because people think, well, maybe if I just do this or that, then they'll change. Or maybe there's a good period and they think, see, he or she's like changing but it doesn't last. So, that one day that'll be the ideal relationship they're hoping for. So you can change this dynamic. It doesn't mean that you're going to have the kind of relationship that you might be dreaming of, but you will certainly have a better relationship with many narcissists. So, but if you follow this plan, you'll find out whether your narcissist is capable of making changes. So someone who is more sociopathic, immoral, malignant narcissist, there's less likelihood of change. Okay. So coming out of denial, and then you want to build your self-esteem. You have to rebuild yourself. Because if you always feel like you're flawed and you're wrong, then you're still going to be a sponge for criticism. It'll be hard for you to stand up and then learning to be assertive and set boundaries. And that's key. So you have to be able to be consistent with it. And people usually need some kind of support, like a coach, a therapist, a sponsor, and a 12-step program. Because when you start setting boundaries, you will get pushback, because the narcissist doesn't want to change the status quo.
Yeah.
They want to they're in power, and that's what they want.
And you have to stay in line.
Pardon me?
You have to stay in line. That's
exactly right. So now you're changing the rules. And they're used to the one making the rules. So you don't have a right to change the rules. So, but you have to, I guide in my new book, I guide people on steps. I have a lot of scripts, tips, things you can say. And I say in the beginning, just observe. And, don't try to make comebacks or anything. Or just write down with yourself, like what you're feeling, what was said, but don't take the bait. And just try to observe what are the triggers, things like that. And what are your triggers? So, and then I recommend taking an educative approach. So you want to teach this narcissist how they're going to get their needs met. You have to know like what they want. And then to a narcissist, relationships are transactional. So they want to know what's in it for them. So, and it depends on the person, the narcissist. Some may actually be interested to know if they're hurting you or not. But others won't care. They might think that's fine. So it depends. And, you have to know whether sharing your feelings will be helpful or not. Like in a normal relationship, you would tell your partner what you did really hurt me, or just like, but I have other ways that I go into of expressing the same thing, like my loving feelings are going away. Well, that might bother the narcissist, or I don't feel as close to you. So when my needs are not met, then it's hard for me to meet your needs. So you let them know the impact of their behavior very specifically.
Okay.
From their point of view, what they want. Like, I know it's important for you that I go to your office party as your partner. But, when you don't help me with the children or something, then, I feel very conflicted about helping you at the office.
Mhm.
It's just, I want to, but it's hard for me, But when you help me, then you show them the positive. But when you help me, or when you ask about my day or something like that, then I feel really close to you, and I feel like we're on a team. And you keep emphasizing that it's a two-way street,
Mhm.
and that we have to have trust. We have to have reliability for this relationship to work. We want to feel like a team. So you keep trying to make it a reciprocal relationship rather than power over. That we can respect each other.
Mhm.
We can both get our needs met. And that's something that narcissists don't know. They didn't learn it growing up, or their brains, they miss the maturation
Mhm.
development in their brain. So they don't see, like at around 4 years old, a child realizes, oh, mommy, you're mommy and I'm me.
Mm.
That doesn't happen for a narcissist. Mommy is still a part of them, an extension of them.
Mhm.
So they don't see others. I explain this in more detail in my book, like as separate from themselves.
Mhm.
You're just an extension of whatever they want. It's like they expect you to read their mind. They don't realize that you have a mind of your own.
Mhm.
Okay. So the problem is with codependence, they don't see themselves as separate from others.
Mhm.
Narcissist doesn't see others as separate from themselves. And codependence is the inverse.
Mhm.
They don't value themselves enough.
Right. Yeah. So
Their
you have been
needs.
mentioning your book, and I have a cover of it. I don't have the actual book because it's not out yet. This is the
Right.
one, right? And
Yes.
when is it coming out? And I'm so excited. Dating,
Yeah.
Loving, and Leaving a Narcissist: Essential Tools for Staying or Leaving. Such an important topic, and all of what we've kind of incorporated sounds like it's all in this book.
Yeah, it's very comprehensive. So it covers gaslighting, ghosting, hovering, trauma bonds, learned helplessness, and dating and idealizing. And a big question people ask is a narcissist capable of love?
Mhm.
And I give some suggestions of how you might decide that in your own relationship, and tools, in dating, and unavailable partners, and also preparation for leaving if that's what you decide,
Mhm.
and some things to ask yourself to decide whether your relationship is capable of being something that you want to stay in, and what you should do.
So for those of you who are watching now, I want to say that it is almost the last day of February. So we're talking March 2022, because they could watch this in 2 years and think it's still coming out.
Oh, right. Oh, that's a good point.
I don't want them to think that, like, again, these videos last forever. So
Right.
we're hoping it's going to come out soon, and they'll be able to get it, I'm sure, on Amazon and all the
Right.
normal places.
Yes,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything that we missed when we talk about the imbalance of power? Or did we kind of like talk about it and now they should get your book?
Well, it's really a road home to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you might think of this relationship as a tragedy, but it's an opportunity for you to reclaim yourself, because probably some of these problems existed before you got involved with a narcissist.
Oh, yeah.
And many people admit that, well, before this relationship, there were others, maybe they were unavailable women or unavailable men. And so they haven't really had the relationship they've been looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually, these steps are not just about changing the imbalance of power in this relationship. You can think of the relationship as an exercise, or your teacher, to come back to the relationship with yourself. The self-love is key.
Mm-hmm.
That your relationship with yourself is a template for all your relationships.
Absolutely. If you have
So
self-esteem, and you're going to attract somebody that's going to keep you right there.
that's right. I mean, I don't want to give anyone the impression that you're responsible for abuse.
Mhm. Yeah.
So some people misinterpret what I'm saying. You're never responsible for anyone else's behavior, but you're responsible for then what you do about it, your reaction. And so self-love is a big part of this journey, and building that relationship with yourself so you become narcissist proof.
Narc proof. I like that. Thank you so much, Darlene, for joining us today. It has been such an honor. Tell me where people can find you. What's the best place? Because I know
Thank you.
codependency.
Well, yeah, my website is whatiscodependency.com.
Mhm.
And I have a page on Facebook, Codependency Recovery, my name followed by my credentials, LMFT, on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I blog every month, and I have a YouTube channel. So if you go to my website or Google my name, you'll get there. And there's links to all my talks and YouTubes and books and social media, all of it.
Yes. Well,
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak.
tap into the resources. She's a wealth of information, and we are blessed to have you here. So thank you so much.
Oh, and I was going to say, and thank you for publishing my blogs every month too.
You're welcome. You're welcome.